Okay, so welcome to the second webinar in our technology services technology webinar series. If you missed the first one, these webinars are being recorded, so you'll be able to go back and watch them at your leisure, and they'll be sent out to everyone who's registered after they're completed. So my name is Andrew Nierenhausen. I work in technology services at YRL. And today we are going to talk about carousel banners on your website, how they work, some tips and tricks for getting the most out of them. This will be a really good introduction if you have not used carousel banners on your site before, and especially if you're interested in getting started with them. We'll also cover a few more advanced topics dealing with banners today. I'm also joined by Laura here, who, if you have any pressing questions, can answer those in the chat. And if you were at our last webinar, you will know that everything that we cover today will be, you can also find in our website training course, which is on Niche Academy. You can also get to it through the YRL intranet and through the YRL website. So yeah, if you want to know a little bit more about banners and carousels, there's a more condensed version of this topic there. So I'm gonna turn off my camera here and we'll get going. So let's get started. So banner carousels are a way to display banners on your website. And we use this for a lot of different things to advertise programming or other events at your library, or really anything that you want to highlight. The carousel rotates through a number of banners, whatever you have loaded into the carousel. And they might link to other pages or resources, or they might just be, some sort of advertisement or notice. So the first step in actually getting a carousel on your site, if you don't already have one, is going to be to contact us at YRL. So you can contact us at wsfl@yrl.ab.ca, and we need to add the module to your website. But once the module is in place, you are able to manage the carousel and the banners yourself. So let's take a look at the back end of Sitecore, kind of how these carousels work. So we'll be doing this in the content editor today, which is where the majority of the website stuff happens. And I'm going to pick on Beaumont a bunch today. So the carousel and banner folders live separately from the rest of the content on your website. And you can find them here in the assets folder. So they'll be alongside your record sets here. Under the carousel folder, you should just have one carousel here. It might be named something else, but if you have more than one, maybe let me know, because the other one's probably not doing anything, but you should have a carousel under there. And then under the banner folder, you're going to have all of the banners that you have ready to go to display on your site. So we'll click on the carousel here and we'll see a little bit about how it's organized. So to make any changes to the carousel, like any other website, or sorry, any other web page, you'd click lock and edit to get started, and that'll open all this stuff up for editing. So here we have two panes, two boxes that contain all of your banners. So all of these banners here in the banners folder are going to show up in these panes, and the selected banners are the ones that are actually going to display on your website. So if we take a look at these two, we have Introduction to Starting Seeds and Introduction to Windows 11. And if we take a look at Beaumont, we see Intro to Windows 11 and Starting Seeds. So to move these around, you just click on the banner you want to use, and then you can use these arrows to kind of navigate them back and forth between the different panes. And in the right pane here, for those that are selected, you can use these arrows here to move them up and down in order. And down at the bottom here, we have the rest of the options for the carousel. So the first one that we have here is autoplay. And what autoplay does is it just rotates from one banner to the next on its own. And sometimes that gets messed up when you're clicking around in the changing them. So yeah, these are all just toggle options. So you can toggle on your autoplay. We have show index dots here. And what this is just these little dots at the bottom. You'll have one of these for each banner that's in your carousel. So if you have 5 or 6, you'll have a bunch of dots here, and they allow you to just kind of click through and navigate through the banners. We have fade here, and fade is just the transition. It's just a visual transition from one banner to the next. So if we click on this, I don't know how well it'll pick up for you as I'm screen capturing here, but there's a slight little fade between one banner to the next. And it's just a visual choice. You can toggle that on and off, whatever looks better to you. And then we have show arrows. And what this is just this tiny little arrow on the right side here, which works the same way as the index dots. And is just another kind of navigation tool for your users. And then the last option we have for the carousel itself is speed in seconds. And this is just how long it takes before the carousel moves from one banner to the next. So you can, if you have a lot of banners, you might want to have them rotate through relatively quickly. Maybe you want it to hold on the first one for a while, so you set it to 10 or 15 seconds or something like that. But again, it's just another option for you. So now that we have covered the carousel itself, there's not too much exciting stuff there. We get to go do the fun part, which is the banner portion of the carousel banner, which is a great opportunity for creativity and kind of showing off your library brand and style. And for this one, I'm going to look at some Leduc options here. So let's take a look at this one. So we'll start by looking at the fields that make up the banner, and then we can talk a bit about best practices. So to create a banner, like any other creation in Sitecore, you just right click on the folder you want to use, and then you would insert, and in this case, it's a carousel banner. I'm not going to create any here today. For an existing banner, you would also hit lock and edit to start your editing. We'll start here with the title and description fields. So banners don't have a text editor like other pages on the site do. So you're a bit more limited in what you can do with your text here. So you can fill in the title and or the description fields. You can choose whether to display them or not by toggling these toggle boxes here. And you could also just leave them blank. But let's take a look at what this looks like. So that would be this banner here. So we can see the title here, calling all local authors and illustrators. And then we have our description here. So in the back end here in Sitecore, we could toggle these to get rid of those. We could have just one or the other or neither. So there's some options there. And then next we have the image. And the image, you can use any image that you want here, but this is going to be one of the areas that we focus on a little bit today. There's a few simple tricks we'll talk about that help you get the most out of your images. But for this field, at least, to add your image in here, you would just click on the browse button, and that's going to open up your media library, and then you'll select your image from the media library. And so to to create your banner, you want to have your images already uploaded into the media library. I'm not going to go through all the media library stuff today, but again, I'll point you to the website training course. We have a couple videos on media library and images and using images. So there's a great primer there if you want to learn about that before jumping into banners. So once you have your image here, you can set up your image as a link. So if you paste a link in here, then your image itself is going to be turned into a button. We can see here from the Beaumont library, when you hover over these banners, you get that clicking icon, which lets you know that this is going to take you somewhere. And if we go to this, it takes us to a calendar booking. So if you enter your link in there, it'll turn your image into a button. Now we also have button link text and button link. And so this is for creating an actual button. Let's see, we're looking at Leduc here. Have online book club. So this one here has a button, and let's take a look what that looks like. So we see their button link text here. Click here to register. So we see that here. And then you would just paste in your button link, and that's going to direct you to that link. So you have the option of, making your image into a link, and you can also create a button over here. So again, more options. Then we have background color. So this is the color of the block where your text is going to go. This is a 6-digit hex code. And it might look a little bit intimidating, but they're actually quite easy to use. So if you look up color picker is what I Googled. Google actually has a built-in color picker. And you can kind of hop around here and select the color that you like over here. And this is going to give you a 6-digit hex code. There's other ways to look this up, and we'll talk about that as well. But I find this is a really simple way of, looking through, finding a color. And so you would just copy this and paste it into your background color here, and that is going to set the color of the text block here. And then the final part of the banner is we have some options about layout. So in layout, you have the option for full image, full text, 50-50 split, 60-40 split, 40-60 split. And so we can see here, Beaumont generally uses a full-size image, and Leduc uses a 50-50 text and image split. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means and how to use it. But you also have the option to reverse layout. So I think a good example of this is this Leduc banner right here. The image they have has these books kind of lined up against the right side of the screen. So you could hit reverse layout, and this image would be moved to the left side and the text would be on the right. But then your books would be kind of butted up against nothing. And it wouldn't look quite as clean. So if you had an image that was kind of butting up against the center, you could just reverse the layout and make it look a little bit more clean that way. So again, more options for creativity and how you want to use your banners.
Andrew, can I just interrupt for a moment?
Yep.
Did you want to wait to the end to answer questions, or?
Yeah, I think that'll be best.
Okay.
Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat here.
No worries. I'm on it, but I will ask you these questions when you're done.
Yeah, I'll make sure to get to all the questions that come up while we're going through this. So when you're going through the banner, one thing that you might want to do is match the colors. And by this, I mean, match them to the color palette you use on your website, or match them to the images that you're using in the banner. So you can definitely eyeball this and kind of use the color picker to select whatever you want. But there are other ways of getting a more accurate color. So I've been using Paint 3D, which should be standard on all Microsoft devices. You should be able to use that. I'm not sure about Apple. I'm sure that there are free available image editors that come on Apple devices. So the way that I would do this, and I'm just going to poach an image here from my PowerPoint. We'll come back to that. And if we paste this in here, you have this little tool over here, and it's like the eyedropper. So if you select that and find the color that you want to use and you click on that, it'll sample the color for you here. And if you double click this, you can copy out the hex code. So if you want to match your banner to an existing image, this is a really quick way for you to do that. And I'll mention this again later, but you can see here that I have a feeling that Leduc has done this with these banners because the image and the text box kind of match seamlessly here. Yeah, you might also have standard colors, sort of like library branding colors that you're using all the time. And if you have those colors and you know those colors, you could keep a list of those and use those as well in your banners. So I think the hardest part about creating banners is getting the size of the images right. And that's definitely the area that I get the most questions about. So to understand image size, we need to talk a little bit about screen resolution. So for most computer screens, 1920 by 1080 is the standard high definition resolution. You might have a slightly different resolution if you're using a laptop or if you have a really large monitor or something like that. But 1920 by 1080 looks good on pretty much every screen. And what this means is that your monitor is showing you 1920 pixels across the width of your screen and 1080 pixels across the height of your screen. That's just how many pixels are packed in there. And so what this means for us is we have to figure out how many pixels our banner is. So I'm on a laptop right now. My resolution might look a little different than it would if you are on a desktop computer looking at one of these banners right now. But if we know that the resolution is 1920 across, we can see the width of the banner here. On the right-hand side, we have this little scroll bar, but it's kind of negligible. So we can just assume our banner is 1920 pixels across. The hard part is figuring out how tall it is. But if you, copy this image into something like Paint, and I'll return to this again, getting your pixel count in Paint, we can see that the banner is 400 pixels tall. So the hard part here is when you're using non-standard sizes. So we know that this is 1920 by 400, but if you're using a 50-50 or a 60-40, it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to tell you those numbers here, so you can write them down if you want to, but you can also do this with a little bit of math. So if we know that it's 1920 pixels across, times 0.4 for 40%, we get 768 pixels by 400. 50% is 960 by 400, and 60% is 1152 by 400. And those are all the standard sizes for images that are going to fit in the carousel banner. So yeah, you might want to use something like MS Paint to achieve this. I also use Canva, and I'll talk about that a bit more later. On the original MS Paint, you can see down here at the bottom, it tells you how many pixels you have here. So you can kind of move this to whatever size you're trying to create, and that helps you just know that you've created it at the right size. So now that you know how to get a banner carousel set up on your website, you know how to create and edit banners, how to put them in your carousel, we can talk a little bit about design. So I am not a graphic designer. But I have learned a few things from watching and looking at some YRL member libraries. And I've got a few examples of banners that I want to share with you that I think are effective and eye-catching. So we'll talk a little bit about these. So I'm going to start with two banners from Beaumont. And I have a sneaking suspicion that whoever does the banners at Beaumont might actually have some graphic design experience. So yeah, they've got some great lessons to learn from here. So the first thing that I noticed from their banners is that they always include their logo in some way, whether it's kind of like watermarked like this, or whether they have it in the screen here. It's just a good piece of branding. It's familiar, and I think patrons get used to seeing it. The second thing I notice is the color. So these banners, this one is white and green, and this one is red and white. Neither color scheme necessarily follows the theme colors of the site, which I believe are a dark blue and a dark green. But they're very eye-catching. And part of this is that the banners are relatively minimal. They're letting the color do a lot of the work. Both banners are also high contrast. And so what this means is that they have a light color text on a dark color background, or a dark color text on a light colored background. And this really helps to make the image pop, but it's also important for accessibility. Users with visual impairments have a much easier time reading high contrast text. So these are a couple examples of good banners, and I wanted to show you guys an example of sort of bad graphic design. So I went and found an ad online. So we'll take a look at this. So this ad is very loud. There's a lot going on here that distracts the eye. There's a lot of different colors. There's different fonts, different styles being used, and the contrast is also not very good. So you can read black text on dark green, but it is pretty low contrast. And what's actually worse is the variety of colors going on behind this kind of makes it hard to read. It's uneven. And yeah, we can see this is not particularly minimal. There's a lot going on here, and you might not actually get all of the information that the ad is trying to share with you. So if we go back to that Beaumont banner, you can see, how this information jumps out at you from the screen. So that's just a comparison of the techniques that Beaumont is using, and here's kind of an example of what not to do. So you might notice that both of the Beaumont banners are full-size banners, but I want to give you some equally good examples of smaller banner sizes. So I'm going to go back to these Leduc banners. And these banners use a lot of the same principles. They have eye-catching use of color, good use of contrast, and they're relatively simple and clean. So the difference here is that Leduc is using the 50-50 layout that allows them to easily add their own text and buttons. So this is really just up to you, right? Because you have all these options. If you want to add your own text here or buttons, you can do it in Sitecore, or you can do it the way Beaumont does it, and they just design it right into the image, and then they link from the banner out from there. So there's lots of options here. What I think is really great about these banners is they took our color sampling trick from earlier, or I'm pretty sure that's what they've done here. And they've used it to create a seamless banner. So even though this is a 50-50 banner with text and buttons and then images over here, it really just looks like one seamless banner. And yeah, as a quick refresher, you can use MS Paint or pretty much any other image editor to sample the color of an image that you're using. And then you can use the hex code from that sample to match your banner to the color of your image. And the last thing that I want to touch on briefly is image editors. So I mentioned MS Paint. but there are a ton of tools that you can use to edit and prepare your banners. I mentioned that I regularly use Canva, which is a really great, it's a free option that I highly recommend. Has a lot of free stock images and things like that. And similar to Paint, you can use it to manually adjust the size of your image by pixel. So you can set it to that 1920 by 400 if you want to have that precise banner. Excuse me. And you might be more familiar or used to using something more advanced like Photoshop, which is probably a little bit overkill for what we're doing here. But I am curious, if you are using image editing software, let me know in the chat actually what you're using. If you're using some tools that you think are really great, let me know. And maybe we can do a future video on actually using image editing software and how to, manipulate stuff and get some branding figured out. So let me know what you're using. And that brings us to the end here. So if you have any more questions about banners, carousels, or working with images, and then we'll take a look at the questions that are in the chat right now.
There was one from Christy, and she was asking, is there any way to get it so the images can just be one size and be able to fit into any size browser? It would make it so much easier.
So I think that's the best way to do that is by using the 1920 by 1080. I don't know. I'd have to take a look at mobile to see how that shows up on mobile as well. But I've had the best luck using those sizes, like the 1920 by 400. I know that I believe Beaumont uses 2000 by 600, which is a really similar ratio. And that's the most important part, is making sure that the ratio is correct.
And Christy just added, it depends on what kind of image I am adding, but I would use anything from Canva, Adobe Creative Cloud, Express, Photoshop, Lightroom, etc.
Yeah, Adobe Creative Cloud I definitely use for a lot of stuff as well, and I will look into some of those others, Lightroom included. Cool, thank you.
Darlene has a question. Is it possible to use Library Aware, probably in conjunction with doing these carousels?
I think so. So I'm not super familiar with Library Aware, although I think that's kind of an image editor for branding and things like that. And if that's the case, then definitely I'll take a look into that because I know we have access to it. You should be able to set up a template or something to create images that would fit well in your banners. Yeah.
From my experience with Library Aware, if that's what you wanted to use it for, similar to using Paint, or what's the other one that you were using?
Canva.
Yeah, yes, very similar. I actually often interchange Canva for Library Aware if I'm trying to create something that's kind of unique for like social media, for example, or a newsletter. And then I can just take a screenshot or a clipping of it and turn it into a JPEG. And you could use that for image building if you want.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
Is there any other questions from anyone here today? You're welcome, Darlene. And there is, hopefully it's going to work because I actually just embedded the survey. So there should be a survey going out. If you don't mind answering it, it's only 4 questions. That would be super helpful. And I will be sending the link to this recording from our YouTube page when it is up and available. And I'll send it to everybody, whether you were able to attend today or not. So no, I think that might be it, Andrew. It's pretty quiet.
Okay. Well, yeah. So thanks for joining us. If you have any questions about banners, carousels, graphic design, feel free, reach out to me, wsfl@yrl.ab.ca. Also the same if you don't have the carousel on your site yet and you would like it, let me know. And yeah, thanks so much for your time. Hopefully you'll join us next time. On March 24th is the next one of these that we're doing, and we'll be doing the add-ons that your library website needs now, which I know is a little bit of a clickbait title, but there's some cool resources that you'll want to check out for your website.
Well, and I guess we should give just one last plug to that Niche Academy website training course, which is available on the Yellowhead Regional Library website. And if you just go to the homepage at the top, there's a little tab that says training. And if you click on that, it's actually the top left little image that comes up. And if you click on that, it's a website training course that has a tremendous amount of information in that. So,
yeah, and you can get to that through the YRL intranet if you're on there as well.
Exactly. Good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So thanks again.
Everyone.
And we'll see you next time.